I think at the end of the day, it's really about taking care of yourself, taking care of the environment, and empowering yourself to feel better so you can be a better person.
Hello, yogis, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Dharma Talk. I'm your host, Henry Winslow, and this is episode number 51. This week, I interview my friend Katy Peetz, the founder of a new company called Keetz Co., which is changing the way people eat and the way people take care of themselves one bite at a time. Now, before I dive into the interview or even introduce the guest further, I have to give a big thank you and shout out to previous guest on this show, Jordan Lydia, for doing something that I did not even realize was possible, which was to set up a monthly recurring donation to Dharma Talk. Thank you so much. That is just amazing and makes me feel so good about what we are doing here together. You, Jordan, all of the other guests that have been on the show, and all of you listeners for tuning in and being a part of this collective consciousness that we're building together. So once again, thank you, Jordan, Lydia, for making a recurring donation to Dharma Talk. If anyone else would like to make a donation, either one-off or recurring, you can do that through the PayPal button on my website, henrywins.com. Okay. Now, about Katy. This episode is really cool because Katy is a friend of mine that I've gotten to know very well through practicing side by side over the years. And I've seen her build this new company, Keetz Co., up from the ground to where it is now. And let me be the first to tell you that the product itself, these energy bites that she has made, are absolutely delicious and amazing fuel if you are someone who is physically active and doesn't want to feel bogged down or weighed down by a brick of some sort of other alternative energy source. It's light, but still delicious and still very energizing. And in this interview, she kind of takes us through the whole story of how she started as a renowned, published, and award-winning Michelin-starred pastry chef, but then hit a critical juncture where suddenly she could not justify continuing to do that anymore for her own personal health reasons. And she faced that through her yoga practice. So we're going to talk about that. We also talk about what it meant for her to create this company. So creating a brand, and a brand that stands for taking care of yourself, body, mind, and spirit. And finally, we talk about how Katy is breaking the status quo in all sorts of different ways in the production of her company and the product to bring a new type of plant-based snack to a growing population of conscious consumers. Now, before we get into the interview, I do want to share that Katy has made a very generous offer to you, the Dharma Talk community. If you would like to order her plant bites online, which is a new option for her, she's taking orders online at keetzco.com. You can get 15% off your order by entering code DharmaTalk at checkout. Okay, so don't pass up that opportunity. I promise you will not be disappointed with these snacks. They're amazing. And with that being said, please stay tuned through these announcements and we'll dive into my interview with Katy Peetz. This episode is brought to you in part by Yoga East Austin. By now, you've heard me mention something I'm really looking forward to, and that is the 5-day RYT 50-hour Rocket Yoga Practice Intensive with Rocket Yoga pioneer David Kyle, coming up April 24th to 28th at Yoga East Austin. I'm pumped to not only meet and learn about the Rocket Yoga system from legendary teacher David Kyle, but also to practice again in Austin, Texas. Austin is an amazing city, rich with weirdness, great food, extraordinarily nice people. Seriously, the people are just the friendliest there. Great yoga and fantastic spring weather. But aside from the beautiful city's backdrop, the host studio itself is a unique and special place where I actually taught some of my very first yoga classes. Since its inception, the founders have made it their top priority to seek out and host the very best teachers for workshops, events, and trainings. It's no coincidence that the teachers, staff, and students there are constantly yearning to learn more and progress in their practices. The unique combination of the city's childlike energy and the community's willingness to try something new makes for an amazing learning experience and an energy I can already feel from here. David Kyle has over 16 years of experience teaching Ashtanga and Rocket Yoga, learning the method from his mentor, Larry Schultz, the founder of Rocket Yoga. Again, this training is from April 24th to 28th during perfect springtime Texas bluebonnet weather. For more info, go to yogaeastaustin.com/rocket. Can't wait to see you all there. On my end, I have several workshops coming up. I hope that you can join me for some or all of them. In New York City, March 23rd to 24th, I'll be at Yoga to the People. On March 30th, I'll be at 3 Jewels, also in New York City. April 6th and 7th, I'm going down to Miami for a weekend immersion at Original Hot Yoga 305 with my wife, Veronica Lombo. Then April 12th through 14th, I'll be teaching at Fuel Hot Yoga in Athens, Georgia. Finally, this is a ways out, but put it on your calendars. Veronica and I are teaching a weekend in Bucerias, Mexico, October 25th to 27th. The details for all of these events are on my website, henrywins.com/events. So go there and sign up. What's your purpose? What's your vision? What mark will you leave on this planet long after you're gone? I'm Henry Winslow, and you're listening to Dharma Talk, the only podcast where I interview inspirational yogis on how they're changing the world in their own unique ways. Whether you're still searching for your purpose or already walking the path, I hope these stories get you excited to live your Dharma. Hello, Dharma Talk community, and welcome back to another episode. Today, I'm interviewing my close friend, Katy Peetz. Katy is an award-winning and published pastry chef, most notably from Roberta's and 2 Michelin-starred Blanca, and also yogi, sometimes teacher, who is forging her path to create real, on-the-go food that empowers people to feel their best with her new company, Keetz & Co. She just launched Plant Bites, energy bites made only with real plant-based foods and without preservatives, fillers, or refined sugars, as a vision of a better way to snack. And I will say, my words here, that I have sampled these products from their inception through the current iteration, and they just keep getting better and better. And I'm really excited to talk to you about the birth of this company and everything that you're doing, Katy. So welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a fan of this show, so I'm so happy to be here. And I'm also thankful that you tried every iteration of these pies. That they're finally tasting really good. So that's great.
Well, let's dive into the interview with the signature question. What does the word Dharma mean to you, and what is your Dharma as you understand it today?
So, if you ask me this question on any given day, I'll probably give you a different answer. And I would say that it's changed from hearing your guests on your podcast, because I think everyone gives such a different answer that's pretty similar. But for me, I would say it's living your most authentic life and finding your purpose and making the world a better, more positive place through fulfilling your purpose. And I think ultimately it's living your highest vibration. And then my Dharma, I think it's changing and developing day by day. But, food's been such a big part of my life. And I don't come from a cooking family, but I've always been drawn to the idea of food as nourishment, as community. And so I think it's just continuing on that path and figuring out how to do that. But now it's definitely more geared towards understanding how food can make you as an individual a better, happier person, because food affects the way you feel, the way you think. This mind-body connection is so powerful. And I think people are talking about it more now than they were even a few years ago. So I think that my Dharma is to help facilitate that.
That's an awesome answer, and I appreciate you acknowledging all the differences in the way that people have put their spins on the idea of Dharma. What I thought was unique and really cool about yours was the idea of following your purpose as a way to make the world a better place and contribute to everyone's well-being. And I think this idea of tackling that issue from the perspective of what we put in our bodies is really powerful because, as you said, you have food as something that's natural to you that you've always been gravitated toward, but everybody eats, and what we put in our bodies absolutely affects our vibration, if you want to call it that, or the way that we show up in the world. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the inspiration for Keetz & Co.?
So Keetz & Co. started, honestly, the inception started when I met you, which was 2 summers ago during our 300-hour teacher training at Lighthouse Yoga School. And, I moved to New York about 10 years ago to go to culinary school, and I was cooking regular, normal, savory food, happened to take over a pastry chef position in a growing restaurant and loved it. Oh my gosh, I loved creating desserts. I loved making ice cream. I'm lucky because I have good genes. I've always been healthy. I played college Division I soccer. I've always loved running. I've been practicing yoga for maybe 15 years. So I've always been healthy enough to eat whatever I want, basically. And pastry, like I said, it was amazing, but it came to a point after a couple of years where I could definitely tell that there was something going on in my body and I didn't know what it was. And it ended up being a gluten intolerance, which I feel like now is kind of just the umbrella to cover a lot of other deeper intolerances or maybe issues, like just eating processed food is not good for you. White flour, not good for you. White sugar, no. And my body just started to say, what the fuck are you doing, basically? So I realized that, and Western doctors were telling me that I was fine. So I went to holistic doctors, and one in particular told me, just, stop eating gluten and white sugar and see how you feel. And there was almost an immediate change. But in my mind, I was freaking out because I was a pastry chef. And I started to gear my desserts more to being gluten-free and containing less dairy and playing around with vegan ice creams. And it was fun, but I knew ultimately, this isn't what I'm supposed to do for the rest of my life. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. But I left the restaurant world and continued to work in the food world in New York, as in food media, food styling. I was a food editor for almost a year and loved it, but I still felt like this isn't what I'm supposed to do. And that was the hardest part, because if you don't know what you're meant to be doing, it's just tough to understand and to find that purpose. And it just kind of sucks. And so that's when I really started to dive into yoga. And I learned about meditation, and I learned how to meditate. And I began to get these tools to kind of understand that maybe I just need to chill out and breathe and listen to what's going on inside me. And it was at that point where I was like, I love cooking. I love yoga. I love helping people feel good. And I have this knowledge now from taking care of my own body that if I can combine all these worlds into one and make it into my career, how can I do that? And ultimately it was through starting my own company, and consumer packaged good, which is called CPG for short. That's technically what my company is. I had no idea what that world was about. I'm still figuring it out and navigating through it. I honestly, sometimes I'm like, how did I end up with a CPG? But, but like I said, and it comes back to my Dharma, is like so much food out there that's packaged is just, even if it says it's a health bar, it's processed food. And I think it's part of what's making people sick and our healthcare system's broken, our food system's broken. And so if I could just get healthier, accessible food out there, and not even that, but the knowledge of how to take care of yourself and how to recognize what you're eating, that would be amazing. And that's what I'm trying to do. That was a long answer.
That's awesome. No, that's the kind of answer that I like. I love these stories. I find them really much easier for everyone to resonate with. It's emotional, and that's our experience, you know.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about all of those ideas the things that you've picked up from being immersed in the consumer packaged goods industry, and your vision for how people can be more informed about their health. But first, let's talk more about you, because you spoke about kind of a juncture that you came across when you were working in pastry, and it was everything that you knew, and you were seeing a lot of success with that, you know, working at Blanca, an amazing restaurant in New York. But meanwhile, you're learning all these things that really shake the core of your identity about the sustainability of what you were putting in your own body. So talk about that, and how did you use yoga to reconcile everything that was going on?
Yoga's always been therapy. I mean, even when I started doing it in college, and from the beginning, I'd always done hot yoga. And as a chef, oh my gosh, hot yoga was the best because it's the most detoxifying type of yoga. So I knew that if I went into a hot room, you know, I was going maybe 5 to 6 days a week. I knew that I would feel okay. Um, but so yeah, yoga was just a place for me to process what was going on and also detox. But ultimately it wasn't enough. And I think that when I was super shaken to my core, that's when I knew I needed more tools. And that's where meditation came in, and a deeper practice, I guess a deeper meaning, and other types of yoga outside of just the hot yoga, to the 26 postures.
Mm-hmm. Right. That makes sense. Like up until then, you were using yoga as kind of like a fail safe to correct for things that you saw as being detrimental. And then when that came to a head, it's like, okay, well, how can I lean more into this yoga to solve the problem at its source, or to address it more directly? And you spoke earlier about part of the vision of your company is to address the growing mind-body connection at a societal level. Do you see your meditation practice as being a part of that or connected?
Oh, huge. A huge part. You know, because a lot of times where we just want to reach for a snack or like reach for something sweet, I mean, it's definitely chemically related in your body, and sugar is shown to be addictive, but it's also habit. And I think that meditation brings a sense of peace that you only can get through meditation. And so if you're focusing just on your breath and on calming yourself and on almost becoming empty, you lose that grabbiness of wanting more, and looking for a magic pill outside to cure everything. And it's a daily struggle for sure. And it's not something that it's like, cool, you meditate, you got it. You have to keep practicing it every single day. Mm-hmm. And I can tell when I don't. It's always, I'm like all over the place, and definitely wanting more of that like cookie at night and stuff.
Yeah. No, I can definitely relate to that experience with meditation. It's like this is here for you as a way not just to replace our addictions, and I use addiction as kind of like a loose word, like including sugar and just things that we do habitually without thinking much. It's not just to replace those, it's actually to bring awareness to them and acknowledge
Yeah.
them. Because as soon as you have that awareness, it's much easier to make an intentional choice around what you're doing. So that
Right.
so that's super cool. I love that that is something that you experienced and played a role in, and you making a change in your life and seeing your path forward and how you could change your identity or step into a new role for the way that you wanted to contribute to the world, as you said. How did you come up with the actual specific idea once you knew that this was something that you wanted to address? Like, how did you come up with the idea for the product?
So I had been making my own energy bites. That same summer that we did the training, I ran the New York City Marathon that fall, and a lot of the food for marathon runners is like pretty sugary. And I had run one marathon before and gotten sick from eating goo, and not like crazy sick, but just nauseous. And as a chef, you're always thinking about how to make something. I'm always thinking about food, and creating it. And so, yeah, and I've always been a on the go person and rely on little snacks throughout the day to keep me going. Um, and so I started making bites and bars, but bites were great because they're just so convenient. And if I wasn't very hungry, but I just needed something, you could pop one in. Or if I was hungrier and wasn't going to eat lunch until late or something, I'd do one or two or three, and I started sharing them with friends, and people started asking me if they could buy them. And that's when I thought, okay, I think I have something here.
Hmm. For the uninitiated, what is it? What are the bites, and how are they different from the bars that are out there?
So the bites that I make are completely plant-based, which a lot of bars out there have whey protein powder. And I think that people ask me all the time if I'm plant-based, and I'm mostly plant-based, but I also don't really believe in labels because everybody's body is different. Everyone comes from a different culture. So I try not to touch too much on that aspect, but my bites are 100% plant-based. I use dried fruits and seeds and superfood powders. And I'm only sweetening them with dried fruits, so they contain no refined sugars and no processed ingredients. And they're the perfect little size to just pop in your mouth on the go.
Yeah, I think that's like it seems like a simple thing, but it's really nice that they come as like three little spheres versus a bar, um, because you can choose how much you want to eat. I remember when you first came out with them and you were first testing them out, and we were in a training or something. Like we were doing something where we were doing yoga all the time, and it was like the best thing to be able to eat something so nutrient dense that gave you energy and fuel to carry on physically, but didn't like make you feel heavy.
Right. And that was my big thing, is because so many bars, and there's not as many bites in the market now, but so many bars have processed ingredients so they can sit on a shelf for like a year. And from a business standpoint, I understand it, but from a human standpoint, like it's just not good for you. And and I knew that I wanted these to be little powerhouse bites. So yeah, they're pretty nutrient dense. I use raw pumpkin seeds and raw pumpkin seed butter, and they keep you full and satisfied. And that's what I wanted. That's what I was looking for, and I couldn't find. So I'm glad that you recognize that and that you like it for that reason.
Yeah, and also more fundamentally, like the idea that you saw there was something that you wanted to have in your own life and it didn't exist, And also then it was validated when people started asking you if they could buy it. It's just like a good lesson for, I think, anyone who's starting up something entrepreneurial. Like those are key ideas that point to success down the road.
And I've been doing so many demos, and a lot of them have been at yoga studios or more athletic type places. And I always ask people, do you buy energy bars? Do you buy energy bites? And I'm so surprised that so many people say no because they have too much sugar in them. And the fact that those people recognize that is awesome, but it's even better for me because there's this whole market of people that don't buy this stuff because they already recognize that it's not good for them. So if I can create something that they will buy and that they are looking for, it does validate what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that just means that it becomes your burden of duty to educate people about something being different and it not being just another product like the ones that exist out there. And I think that's a great segue into my next kind of line of questions for you around what you've encountered with this new venture. You spoke earlier about how little you knew about the consumer packaged goods industry getting into this, and perhaps if you had known, all the obstacles that lay ahead of you, maybe it would have stopped you from getting into it. But sometimes it's best just to only know the step in front of you, because who knows what opportunities lie ahead. So what has that been like? What kind of what challenges have you come up across?
I think the biggest thing in the beginning was for me to wrap my head around how, like, if I have a single product and it's being sold on a national level, how many of those are being produced? And can I even get there? Can I myself lead a business where I can produce? And I'm still struggling with that, wrapping my head around how large of an operation this could be, and then the back end steps of getting that there. And I did study business in college, and I have that was so long ago though. But all of the components around running a business and a startup at that. And I have an amazing community of support, but I'm still one person doing this. And so it's wearing all the hats, the marketing hat. I'm set up my website. Never had really done that before. And there's so many amazing tools out there now. Like, this is the best time to be doing it, but it's still learning a lot of different things. And then understanding how to scale your product. And do I build my own facility and get investment money because I don't have that own money, or do I go to a co-packer? And if I go to a co-packer, what's that going to look like? Where are they going to be once it's in the co-packer? And a co-packer is basically somebody that would make my bites for me. Once they manufacture them, where is it being held for storage? How does it get to the store? So just the supply chain and understanding that it's and it's different for every company. No one has all the answers. So it's really you just got to figure it out on your own, I guess, and talk to as many other people who have kind of done this to get some good advice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to your point earlier, if you are breaking the mold in a certain way, for example, not including all of these preservatives that prolong the shelf life, that introduces new complications, new questions to the whole supply chain. So you can't just follow the cookie cutter kind of template of companies that you have to work with to make it happen.
Exactly. And I didn't mention this, and I should have earlier, but I do sell these bites as a refrigerated item, because I'm not using preservatives. They are technically shelf stable, but seeds go rancid faster than even nuts. And because I'm using so many raw ingredients in order for them to stay fresh and to be bioavailable to your body, they should be chilled as long as they can. So yeah, I'm definitely navigating that world of the cold supply chain. And it's more expensive, but at the core, it's like, if this is what's healthier, if this is what's going to make you feel better, this is what I'm going to do.
Right. And I think that's so important for anyone who has to face like all of these difficult decisions. And maybe, I don't know, difficult may be the wrong word, because it's not necessarily like shaking you to your core in the way that some of these identity like questions did earlier on, but there's a lot to consider. What I think is so important to drive you forward and anyone else in your position is having a strong like true north. And for
Yeah.
you, I can tell it's like the integrity of the product. Like even if it's technically shelf stable for a longer period of time, you wouldn't want to compromise the true benefit of your product, because that's what's motivating you to do this, is to get people into a better position to be able to feed their bodies with nutritional foods. And it's not about getting away with something or making a profit necessarily. It's about actually changing people's ideas.
Right. Right. So yeah, it's doing that, but figuring out how to be a sustainable business at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. It can't really be either or, because if you're not a sustainable business, then it cuts the project short.
Exactly.
So what do you think, like, what do you see for the future of Keetz & Co.?
I would love to have a whole line, and that's what I plan on doing, a whole line of products. I think that my bites are a pretty niche product, and people really, people that get it love them. People that are used to eating a lot of sugar sometimes don't love them, but I I want to create a brand that reflects this lifestyle of taking care of yourself. And as as a chef and always thinking about food, I would love to have more products down the line, and all being the same, of no refined sugars, no preservatives, being as clean and as transparent as possible. And I think that there's a demand for that, and data is showing that there's a demand for that as well. And people are getting smarter, and um, people are realizing that what they eat affects how they feel. And yeah, so I'm excited about it.
I agree with you. I think there is definitely a growing consciousness around the importance of food as not only being tied to your physical health, but being tied to your mental health and the way that you experience the world. I mean, it's definitely showed up in my life. It's been 6 months since I converted to an all plant-based diet, and it does. I mean, it's not just a matter of feeling lighter or feeling stronger or weaker. And I didn't feel weaker after I switched, which was a big concern. I think that's just a myth, honestly. But it's also like you feel better about the choices that you're making because you can stand behind them. I know you said earlier that you resist the labels attached to that, and I think they do carry some baggage, particularly when people get kind of vindictive or self-righteous about
Hmm.
certain choices. But who do you think that your brand is really for? Like, who are you hoping to serve?
So something that a word that I've come across upon starting this company is Flexitarian, which sounds like I made it up, but I promise I did not. Flexitarians are people that are mostly plant-based, and if they're eating or if they're consuming animal-based products, they're aware of where they're coming from. Um, Try to be as environmentally conscious as possible when you're making this decision. But I always add this, is that the fact that we even have this choice is a privilege, and it's not accessible to everybody. So that's a huge part of why I stay away from the deep conversation of it. But I think at the end of the day, it's really about taking care of yourself, taking care of the environment, and and empowering yourself to feel better so you can be a better person. And I do truly believe that a plant-based diet is the best way to do that. Or at least mostly plant-based diet. I think vegetables are so amazing and so good for you, and they bring so much life and vitality.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I I'll say this about it. I think that I agree with you. I think the plant-based diet is the best thing for most people's bodies, definitely the best thing for the environment. And then there's the whole issue of the ethical treatment of animals and all of this. And we don't need to get into all of that. But
Right.
what's important, I think, is that even if you do believe in any or all of those causes, the answer is not to put people down for not getting there. Like, we have to respect everyone's process, and to celebrate even a slight shift in that direction is still a good thing and worthwhile. So I love this idea of the Flexitarian. I think that's great. And honestly, by focusing on that segment of the market is going to be a prosperous decision for you as a business. And also it's a good idea because it actually moves the needle rather than just like speaking into our echo chamber of people who, like the PETA followers. That's not really that helpful.
Right.
So yeah, cool. Good for you.
And awesome for being 6 months plant-based.
Thanks. It's not that long in the grand scheme, but I feel really good about it. And at this point, it does feel that it's definitely sustainable. Like 6 months is long enough to know that it's not just a blip.
Right. Do you just want those Beyonce tickets?
I don't know about that. What
Did
are
you
you
hear
talking
about
about?
that?
No. What is this?
Beyonce and Jay-Z announced that if people proclaimed they would go vegan for 30 or 40 days, she would give them free tickets or something. So there's all these funny memes about people trying to go plant-based.
Okay, well, it's been 30 days. How do I claim my tickets?
I'm not sure how it works. I didn't read into it deep.
That's really funny. Okay, so Katy, give us a call to action. What have you got for the listeners of Dharma Talk, and how can they start eating the plant bites?
So you can find my plant bites online. I'm starting to ship nationally. If you're in the New York area, especially Brooklyn, they're popping up in more and more yoga studios and coffee shops. And all the locations are on my website as well, www.keetzco.com. But even at an easier level, start listening to your body and start paying attention to how you feel. And if you find yourself in these emotional ruts, I think look to your diet first and try to change something there. And I'll just be here waiting for you to do that and able to give you a snack that'll help you feel good and keep on that path of feeling good.
Nice. Yeah. Apart from getting your message out on this podcast, what are you doing today to advance Keetz & Co. and to live your Dharma?
Today, oh my gosh, well, I'm constantly working on my website and editing it. And then I'm running around to 2 different places to try to get my bites in those places. But I'm also spending time with friends today. Man, how am I getting my Dharma across? I guess just sharing my bites with people. And, I walk into a lot of these sales pitches, which sounds so businessy and weird, but I walk into these as an opportunity for me to share my vision of a better way of health and not necessarily push a sale on them. So I get excited about these. I feel like maybe that's a little part of sharing my Dharma of just, maybe if they're not going to sell them, they at least get to taste them and feel good.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it goes back to that same balance that we touched on earlier. It's like, yeah, you have to keep a sustainable business, but sometimes the way to do that is not to focus on the bottom line so much. It's to focus on the crux of what's at stake. And
Right.
I think you've managed to do that despite all of the challenges, despite wearing all of the hats up to this point, and I'm confident that you'll keep doing that.
And to add on that, I think that the people that I've met since doing this have been incredible. And I've met more interesting people in the last year since working on this than almost all my years in New York. And that's been so amazing and great. And somebody, I was just at a event last week, and I don't remember who said it, but they said people invest in humans, or people buy humans, the human experience, they don't buy products. And I just keep telling myself that. And if I can establish relationships with people and help them see what I'm trying to do and not just push this sale or this product on them, they respond to that a lot better, because that's just what we just want, the human connection.
Yeah. Yeah. And sharing your story and your why around everything, I think goes a long way, which is why I'm so happy to be able to have this conversation and hopefully share your message with a new subset of people who could be interested in it.
Thank you.
I really believe in what you're doing, and I love your product. I think it's delicious, and I have a bunch of them in my refrigerator right now. So yeah, I support you 100%. I think
Thank you. That means so much to hear it from you and from people at the studio and friends and strangers. It's like, that's what keeps me going. That encouragement means, you have no idea. It means so much.
I think now is the perfect time to move into the final prana round of the interview. So this is where I'm going to ask you 6 rapid fire questions and ask you to answer in minimum 1 word, maximum 1 sentence. Okay, Katy?
All right.
All right. In 1 word, why do you practice yoga?
For my own sanity, so I can be a better person.
What is your favorite yoga pose and why?
Oh, this is a good one. I guess I like triangle right now a lot, because I've noticed that I store so much stress in my hips, and you get the twist, you get the stretch, you get the shoulder stretch, the hip stretch, and then once you find your legs, you just feel this empowerment. So I think I'm really into that pose right now.
Yeah, take that power. Take that power and use it.
Exactly.
What is the single best cue or piece of advice you've ever received from a teacher? And for you, I'll actually say you can answer with a single piece of advice that you've learned from one of these interesting people you've met along the way with your journey into CPG.
The Mula Bandha and Uddiyana Bandha from Lighthouse.
I was going to say, that was definitely from one of the food conventions, right?
Yeah, no way. No, but that has changed my whole yoga practice, and in turn has changed. Oh my gosh. I mean, I had back problems before that, but I think understanding that affects your posture, and then affects how you present yourself in the world too. Mm-hmm. So that's been not from my CPG life, but should I answer the question from the CPG way too?
Sure. Yeah. Why not?
I guess I'll go back to where I said that people respond to the human connection and the story, and they don't necessarily just buy products. I think that was a really helpful piece of advice. Oh, and I've been told this by both yoga teachers and by a business person, is that everything you have really is inside you. It's a lot of work to find it and to get it out, but you have the tools. You just have to really work hard at finding them.
Mm-hmm. recommend one book, modern or ancient, for our listeners.
Right now I'm reading The Endless Practice by Mark Nepo. I don't even know how to pronounce his last name right. He used to be a poet, and now he writes these, I guess, like, I hate saying self-help books, but it's like a motivational book. But he is the most beautiful writer, and man, I've been reading this book for almost 2 months, and I'm only on page like 38 because I just mark it up and reread passages. But yeah, I highly recommend that book. It's been really helpful to read that.
Is yoga for everyone?
Hell yes. Absolutely.
Are Keetz & Co.
Yeah.
plant bites for everyone?
Yes. Hell yes.
Okay.
And if you think that they're too sweet, maybe you need to check on how much sugar you're eating and how you're feeling.
You mean
But
if
yeah.
they're not sweet enough?
Or yeah. If they think that they're not sweet enough.
Okay, last question. How can our audience get in touch with you, and how can we support you in your Dharma?
Come say hi to me on social media. I joke that I'm a millennial, but I'm digging into my true millennial to try to foster a community. But also, yeah, if you're interested, just go to my website, and you don't even have to buy anything, but just check out what I'm doing. Drop me an email. You can easily do that through my website. Drop me a DM. I think I just like hearing from people, and meeting people and growing this community and growing this awareness.
And that website again is?
www.keetzco.com. And you can also contact me at katy@keetzco.com. And Katy is Katy.
Got it.
Or on social, which is Keetz Co.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, making this product more about a product or less about a product and more about human experience and connection. And thank you for being an amazing person living your Dharma. Really appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Henry. I love what you're doing, and I'm so happy to be on this episode.
Hey, Dharma Talk community. If you enjoyed this podcast and you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button right now. And if you'd like to show your support even more, leave me an honest review on iTunes or whatever podcast directory you listen on. You can also make a financial contribution to keep the show up and running, a donation at henrywins.com. And remember, I'm here to serve you. So if you have any questions or comments or ideas, you can always reach me on Instagram at henrywins. Otherwise, I'll speak to you next week. Keep living your Dharma.